You're a SaaS founder, you've built something solid, but growth still feels harder than it should. Most SaaS companies don't fail because of bad tech. They fail because they've never become a must-have to the right customer. This podcast is here to change that. I'm Ton Dobbe, and this is the Remarkable SaaS Podcast. Every week I talk to founders in the trenches, facing friction, making bold moves, and building companies that last. We dig into real choices around focus, positioning, customer pool, team alignment, the things that separate forgettable software from the ones that people can't live without. No hype, no hacks. Just honest conversations to help you build something that people would miss if it was gone. If your SaaS should be indispensable but isn't yet, this is your podcast. Let's get into it. This episode is a very special one. It's episode 400. So today we'll focus on the last 100 episodes. That's a lot of conversations. A lot of moments where CEOs said something that actually made me put my pen down and think. Did they just say what I think they said? Over the last 100 episodes, I asked every guest the same question at the end. What's the one do and the one don't that you'd like to share with other founders? And I've been saving these. And for this milestone episode, I went back through all of them and pulled the 18 that I believe will genuinely open your eyes. Not the ones that make you nod and move on, the ones that actually hold a mirror. The ones that make you want to call someone on your team tomorrow morning. 6 don'ts first, and then 12 do's after that. The don'ts follow a simple pattern. A CEO assumed something was true, acted on it, and paid for it later. The assumption was different each time. It was about markets, timing, money, people. The pattern was always the same. And once you see it, you'll start recognizing it in your own business too. The do's move from the inside out. Who you need to be, how you compete, how you grow, and who you put around you. I'll be in between each clip to connect the dots. Back to what I learned writing The Remarkable Effects, about the 10 traits that separate remarkable software companies from the rest. Now let's get going with it. Let's start with what not to do. Right now, every SaaS CEO I speak to is under pressure to move on AI. Add it to the product. Rebuild the roadmap around it. Hire for it. Ship something before competitors do. But here's what I learned across 400 episodes. Remarkable software companies don't move because the market is moving. They move because they've made a deliberate choice. There's a big difference between the two, and most companies never stop to notice it. Harpreet Singh, co-CEO of Launchable, put his finger on exactly why that matters.
Don't just be chasing the next fad. If there's a new fad that's come in and you need to bring it in right away, you're probably already too late, right? I've seen places where the next fad dictates the next 6 months, and that creates a lot of friction for the people on the ground who are actually delivering it. And they don't quite know what they're delivering and why they're delivering. And over a period of time, it just erodes confidence in the leadership.
If your team cannot tell whose problem they solve and why they care, that confusion spreads fast. And it's expensive. What Harpreet is really saying is this. Remarkable companies are selective by design. They acknowledge they cannot please everyone. Chasing a fad is the opposite of that. It's trying to stay relevant to everyone at once. And that always comes at a cost. The same failure shows up in hiring too. Josh Ehlers, CEO of OpenGTM, learned this the hard way, more than once.
Do not hire ahead of product market fit. I've made that mistake way too often where you think you are ready to scale, but those signs aren't there, but you have a great feeling about it. It's all about opportunity cost. And you can send yourself down some terrible roads if you invest too early in bad deals, bad leads, and employees that aren't a fit for a pre-product market fit company.
Acting on what you want to be true rather than what is true. That's the thread running through all 6 of these don'ts. The next one will surprise you, because it goes completely against what the startup world tells you to do. Ed Bradley, CEO of Virtual Stock, built a business that transformed retail supply chains without early investment. Not by choice. Investors actually said no to him. But here's what he discovered because of that.
This is going to sound really weird, and I've been called out on this before, but my advice to young startups is don't raise money. Don't raise money. Just keep your costs low, low, low. Work out of a bedroom, work out of a cellar, just don't go and get a big office. Don't go and recruit loads of people. Don't go and spend loads of money. You'll be amazed what you can do with a zero budget marketing spend. You can do a lot because as a startup, you're equity rich. You may be cash poor, but you're equity rich. You've got the whole thing. And so don't give it away. Don't give it away in the early days, because what your business looks like on day one is going to be nothing what it looks like on year 3. It's going to be totally different.
Cash poor, but equity rich. That reframe alone is worth sitting with. Because what Ed is really describing is a choice most founders don't realize they're making. I call this funding freedom. The companies that build on their own terms almost always end up with more leverage, not less. That is not luck. That's a deliberate decision to play by different rules. Aymeric Arnault, CEO of Agorapulse, built on this from a different angle. He's not against raising money, he's against raising it for the wrong reason. And he's honest enough to admit he almost fell into that trap himself.
Do not raise money if you don't know what to do with the money. Do not raise money. And again, I have almost raised money at one point because I felt it would make me part of the team, part of the successful ones, and it's stupid, but I'm pretty sure a lot of founders feel that way because I felt that way at one point.
Yeah.
So that is for sure. VC firms and investors are going to tell you that you're going to get more than money. It is true that if you're lucky and you have a good one, you're going to get a little bit more than money, but it's a little bit more than money. Money is 90% of what you're going to get. Maybe 10%, if you're lucky, is going to be introductions, directions, and sometimes, helping you steer in the right direction when you're lost, which happens sometimes. So do not overvalue what that is. That's what it is. And if you don't know how to leverage that money, you've basically just given away part of your company for something that you're not going to get value from, which makes you feel very bad once you realize it. I can tell you that.
Exactly. The most expensive assumptions aren't always about money. They're often about people. And this one keeps up coming more consistently than almost anything else across 400 episodes. The person you keep too long, the decision you delay out of guilt or loyalty, or just not wanting to have the hard conversation. What most CEOs don't realize is that keeping the wrong person isn't an act of kindness. It's a decision that affects everyone else in the company. Krishna Rajaraja, CEO of Support Logic, makes this point with a reframe I haven't heard anyone else say quite so directly.
Don't delay decisions. More specifically, don't delay firing decisions. And this is something a lot of entrepreneurs grapple with. We struggle with letting go of people who are not the right fit for the company because there is a lot of stigma associated with it. There's a lot of guilt associated with it sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of empathy associated with it. Rightfully, you need to have empathy with your employees as well, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot do this at the expense of the business. Sometimes you hang on to the wrong people way too long, and that it really, really impacts the business, which means for the purpose of one person, you are impacting the lives of the other people in the business who are depending on your business. So that is something I would urge entrepreneurs to make those decisions, tough decisions, very, very quickly. There are two kinds of hiring decisions you can make, they say, right? One is hiring the wrong person, and the other one is mishiring the right person. I think hiring the wrong person is more risky than anything else.
Hiring the wrong person is more risky than missing the right one. Most CEOs carry the anxiety of missing the great hire. Krishna is saying that's the wrong fear. The final don't is the hardest one, because it's not about markets or money or people, it's about you. Jason Cohen founded WP Engine and scaled it to hundreds of millions in revenue. He knows the zone that most of you are in, 5 million to 100 million, better than almost anyone. And he says there's one belief that quietly kills more companies at this stage than anything else. One assumption so common is become invisible.
One thing that you should not do is believe that just because you got to this point, you know how to get to the next point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phrase, what got us here will not get us there.
True.
It's common because it's true, but also it's so common that it's sort of this throwaway thing. People are like, yeah, we got to do something different. Anyway, let's get back to life. And they don't really fully ingest what that means. It means you might not be the right CEO. It means the employee number one, who you are so loyal to, you would give them a kidney, needs to leave.
Yeah.
It can mean that a whole product is not going to get you there. It could mean that there's all kinds of areas you know nothing about in finance and HR and so forth, and you're now late in getting them, and you don't even know that, and you don't know how to hire it, and so you have these levels of unknown, and you're just sitting there going, I'm a genius. I got us to 50 million revenue. We're just going to keep solving problems because that's what we do. Incorrect. Just figuring it out as you go does not work anymore at scale.
6 don'ts, 6 assumptions that cost CEOs everything. Before I move to the do's, a quick word. Everything you've been hearing today connects to a framework that I've spent 30 years developing and ultimately wrote into a book, The Remarkable Effect. 10 traits that separate software companies people talk about from the ones that quietly disappear. I've made the electronic version available for free. Just go to theremarkableeffect.com. You'll find your first insight within 10 minutes. And if anything from what you've heard so far resonates, I think you find a lot more there. Now, the do's. 12 of them. I've structured them like a journey, from the inside out. It starts with who you need to be as a leader. Then, how you compete. Then how you grow your market. Then how you build a machine inside your company. And finally, who you put around you. It ends with something I haven't forgotten since I first heard it. Let's go. Every remarkable company I've spoken to starts with one person who owns the direction and the courage to say, this is where we're going. Most leadership books tell you that's dangerous, that you need buy-in, that values built by one person won't stick. Matt van Italy, CEO of SEMA, tried it the right way first, and he'll tell you what happened.
I think the thing that comes most to mind, and especially this is different coming from a more of a corporate setting, is it really is okay for it to be a singular vision. And I think I didn't understand that at the beginning. If I showed up as an executive with an existing company, I would take the current values, I'd reflect on them, we'd go through a workshop together and, come up with a blend of what I thought, what we thought the values might be for the future. I actually did that the first 2 years of SEMA, and it didn't work. And then I realized we're just going to use mine. And you can like my values, and you'll have a great time here, or not, and you're not the right fit. But it's not consensus. It is the values are my vision, and folks come here have to follow them. And that, I don't know, felt too egotistical or not collaborative or whatever, but that is the only way. The only way to make a startup go as fast as possible is a very, very small number of people, 1 or 2 max. Their vision is what you're carrying out. It's not a consensus. It is going in this direction because you just have so little resources to be able to achieve what you want to achieve.
Owning the direction requires one thing most founders struggle with: backing yourself before anyone else does. Not because you got all the answers, but because the founders who build something remarkable almost never follow the obvious path. Richard White, CEO of Fathom, was in the very first batch of Y Combinator. He watched the best operators in the world build their companies up close. And what they had in common surprised him.
The thing that I saw the most successful people do is really trust their own gut. From an early age, before they seemingly had any right to trust their gut that much, their own intuition on things, and not be afraid to do things just the way that made sense to them, not whatever the latest thing out there was. Like Superhuman's a good example, right? Like doing something like, no, we're going to have people do 30-minute onboardings with every customer, right? Like having the guts to say, we're going to do this, even though every VC would probably say that's not how companies do it, right? And so just finding a way to do it your way and what makes sense to you, I think is super important, because that's how you get kind of differentiation. Is you do things differently. You do things the way that makes sense to you, not just what it seems like everyone else is doing. And so that is the number one thing. I think I've learned this lesson now, but it took me 10, 15 years to figure out like, oh, I should stop trying to build everyone else's startup and I should try to build my own.
Singular vision, trusting your gut. Both of those require one more thing, knowing who you are before the pressure hits. Because when momentum arrives, you won't have the time to figure it out. The companies that fall apart at speed aren't usually the ones with the wrong strategy. They're the ones who never defined what they stood for, so every fast decision becomes a guess. Matt Achariam, CEO of Mesh, knows what it feels like when everything accelerates at once. He has a simple piece of advice for before that happens.
Be very clear about the values and the lines that you will cross and won't cross. Because I think when things start speeding up and momentum is something very precious, and once you have it, it's a great feeling within the company, but a lot of things can start breaking. So it's always helpful to have a reference or a foundation that you have of things that you will and won't do, right? And I think things go really badly when you don't really understand who you are, because when you move really fast, you have to move with confidence. And if you don't have that confidence and that foundation, you're not going to be able to make decisions rapidly. I think a lot of advice around move fast and break things is generally true, but I don't think that is the best thing for a lot of companies. You have to think about what kind of company you are. And again, I guess it just goes back to saying, like, have a good set of foundational values that you can rely on in tough times and in good times.
Foundation set, now strategy. And right now, the biggest strategic mistake I see software companies making is starting with a solution and searching for a problem to attach to it. The recent AI wave has only made it worse. Scott Reynolds, CEO of Opcodes, names it simply.
I think the do is start bottoms up with a problem. And they're ideally a problem that's not obvious. So not a CRM, not a generic tool like real building Slack or a messaging tool. It's real problems that real world professionals or individuals have, and starting from the bottom and then working up from there, and understanding your category and how do you do category creation. I think that's after you get product market fit and after you solve the problem. Don't start tops down about what's a really exciting, cool tool that came out and what's possible. And to use a saying, it's a hammer in search of a nail. It's a solution in search of a problem, where they have a really cool, interesting solution, and now they're looking, where can we apply this solution? And I think that fails 99 out of 100 times. It's really hard to do it that way. And we just see a lot of excitement with ClaudeBot and OpenClaw and these agents. But at the end of the day, I always ask them the same thing, and it's, what problem are you solving? And they can't answer the question. It's like I agree, from a technology standpoint, very interesting. That is really cool. And as technologists, we can celebrate that. But if you want to build a company with enduring value, whose problem are you solving? And there is no problem being solved.
Start with the real problem. Once you have that, the next question is where to compete. And here's a test I always come back to. On a scale of 1 to 10, is the problem you're solving valuable? Is it critical? And can you exceed expectations in solving it? If any answer is below an 8, start over, new category or not. That's the only question that matters. Mark Walker, CEO of New, learned this the hard way.
Fearlessly reimagine an existing market is a better idea than creating an entirely new market. Entering an existing market and making it better is much more profitable than, and even though it's harder than starting something completely raw, unless you happen to be a visionary genius. And I've never considered myself a visionary genius. Don't let your ambition outstrip your focus. Right? It's so easy to do. I battle with it every day. People come to me all the time, go, "Can we do this with you? Can we do that with you? Can we do this with you?" And the power of no is a very important one.
Knowing whose problem you solve is one thing. Getting in front of them and making them care is another. That's what I call mastering momentum in my book, The Remarkable Effect. Creating curiosity and urgency in exactly the right people. Caitlin McGregor, CEO of Plum, has a do and a don't on this that belong together.
Do sales. And I know it sounds funny, but if you're part of like a tech accelerator, or tech incubator, we get so much coaching from all these organizations on how to pitch investors, but we're not given sales training or sales support. So the do is more time selling. And the don't is don't waste time talking to the wrong customer, like really identifying what size of organization and what type of stakeholder that you should be talking to. You can waste a lot of time focusing on the wrong group. And then once you have to align your resources the right way. So, if you're focusing on enterprise, do you have enterprise reps? Do you have enterprise go-to-market? Do you have enterprise marketing? Or if it's SMB, does your sales and marketing teams align to that target audience? So don't pick the wrong target audience and don't have the wrong match of revenue resources to align to that.
More selling, right customers, and sometimes that means turning money away when you're just getting started. This is one of the hardest things a founder can do, because early revenue feels like validation. But the wrong customer doesn't validate your business, they redirect it. They pull your product in a direction that serves them, not your ideal market. And before you know, your product is shaped by the wrong people. Tal Perez, CEO of On Fire, learned this the hard way. He said no to customers who wanted to pay, and here's what happened next.
At the beginning, you need to say no to customers or potential customers, and you need to choose wisely the best fit. I can tell you that we had a couple of customers at the beginning, so they wanted to pay us money, and I was like, wow, it's so amazing. But at the end, we as a company, it was a wrong decision, because you started to build some dedicated features for those companies, and the support was pretty aggressive. And once you choose the right companies to work on and you focus on those, you will see that it's going to transform your entire company.
Yeah.
It's going to be much better in terms of the sales, the product market fit. Your product will be involved in the right position, and your team will be much happier.
Your first customers don't just buy your product, they define it. Who you say yes to in the early days shapes everything that follows. Your roadmap, your team's energy, your product market fit. So the machine you end up building is largely determined by who you let in at the start. Jason Cohen, founder of WP Engine, picks up exactly there.
What I do think is wrong would be to say, well, we'll just change out all management or make really dramatic changes like that. We need a leader of every department who has seen scale. That's too drastic. So one thing I do think you could do is you could say, are there one or two areas in the business, but probably a department, but it doesn't have to be so specific, where it's either scaling the fastest, and so we need people who've seen the movie the most there, or it's our biggest blind spot. I'm not even sure what all goes in that department. Okay. Yep. Right. And so either way, it's this huge problem.
Yeah.
And could you get some seasoned leadership there? So not trying to get it everywhere all at once and change everything, but could you, the thing that's under the most dire need of scale or biggest blind spot, so you don't even know what you don't know, let's maybe fix that. And so if you're scaling really fast and you're a product or engineering leader, you might be able to hang on. But then you look over at the HR area and you're like, I don't even know. It's well, that's not okay. It's not okay to just not even, the company needs that to be known. Since you're not the one to do it, you don't even want to do it, you're not spending your time doing it, you don't know how to hire, well, who's going to fix that? Okay, so if it's a big hole like that, then that's a good reason to bring in a new person.
Be surgical. Don't restructure, but diagnose. Find the one gap that's costing you the most and plug it with someone who has already solved that problem before. But that raises the next question. how do you actually know if you're hiring the right person? Emeric Arnault, CEO of Agorapulse, spent years and serious money figuring that out.
Basically, what you need to do is a scorecard of 5 or 6 things that you expect the person on the job to deliver. And when you think about what these things you should expect, think of them in a situational way. Like, what do they look like in the doing? How do you know if they're done or not done? Like, what does that look like in practice? Let's take an example. So if you're hiring an account executive, for example, a sales guy, don't write reach your quota. I want them to reach their quota, and that's a scorecard. Like, what's their ability to reach their quota? No, go and write ability to discover. Because if you interview someone, how are you going to know if they can reach their quota or not? You will not know, because in the way you interview the person, there will be no question that will help you know whether or not they're going to be able to achieve their quota. But if the element in the scorecard is know how to do customer discovery and discover the pains and the needs of the customer, now you can ask questions. That's very situational. Okay, that's very interesting. So tell me, you're on a call with a new potential customer, and your goal is to discover why they came to you. What questions do you ask? And then you go for the questions. Oh, I asked this, I asked that. And then if you have done this yourself, you'll quickly know if they will be good at discovering the pains of the customer. So in the way you test people, first identify the things you want them to be good at and make those things testable in an interview and situational, and not about the objective, but about the how you get to the objective.
Yeah, true.
And things that they are expected to do that are evidence that they know how to do their job.
Getting the right people in is one thing. Getting everyone moving in the same direction is another. It reminds me of a quote from Radhika Dut, who was on this podcast in the early days. She shared a distinction that stuck with me ever since. Speed is everyone moving as fast as they can. Velocity is bundling their speed in the same direction. Most companies have speed, very few have velocity. That's what I call mastering momentum in my book The Remarkable Effect. Theo Saville, CEO of CloudNC, is very direct on how to get there.
OKRs are a way of communicating what metrics are important.
Yeah.
They're not a to-do list. That's the number one mistake that people make when I'm coaching people in how to do OKRs in my own team. They always try and write it as a list of things to do. All right, so we know that we've got to sell a lot of Cam Assist this month, so we're going to, go to trade shows, get into publications, do this, do that, the other. No, the objective is actually really simple. It's drive trial downloads. Everything else, all of the things that you want to do in order to move that number can go live in some project management software. I don't even need to see it. All we need to talk about is, this is the number that we want to move the needle on. Have we moved the needle on it? How are we going to move the needle on it? Let's talk about that number. It's a great way of leading a very large team. It's a great way of leading a small team, actually. It's a great way of leading anybody. Just open the conversation with what number is important for the success of the business. Otherwise, you get super sidetracked really quickly.
You cannot build any of this alone, and you cannot run it alone either. The CEO chair is one of the loneliest seats in the business. Nobody tells you that before you sit in, and most CEOs I speak to are trying to figure out problems that someone else has already solved. They just don't have that person in their corner. Randy Wooten, CEO of Maxio, has been in that seat multiple times. He's worked out exactly what you need around you and put it into something concrete you can act on today.
I think the thing about being a CEO in particular is it's really lonely. And you don't know what to do until you actually get in the seat, right? Like, there's no prep for it. So I do think I recommend people having 4 things. 1, a mentor. 2, a coach. Number 3 is a community of peers. And number 4 is a personal advisory board. The mentor is someone who's been in your specific situation, context, and stage, and can provide you feedback on the business side. Like, here's some things to think about. I've had one in each of the 3 CEO gigs I've had. Incredibly valuable in terms of been there, seen that, done some pattern matching, and they're not the investor. They're someone that you can be a little bit more kind of forthright with, and they're going to beat you up. The coach is someone who's helping you more on the emotional intelligence, how do you do interpersonal effectiveness? I got a coach when I was a public company CEO to help me with the board and managing a public company board. I have continued on with coaches in that capacity through my entire career, and enormously valuable. I do think having a community of other CEOs that are in the same sort of stage and context that you meet with on a regular basis can be really powerful. In part because you're sharing ideas, in part because you're commiserating, and in part I find that during those days that I'm in those meetings, I'm disengaged from my business and my subconscious is working on business problems. And so I often come out of those meetings with new ideas that I wouldn't have gotten if I was just another day at the office. So I think there's a mechanism, a catalyst of the forum. And the fourth one, I would say, I really encourage people, you have a network, find the 3 or 4 people that you like immensely, have known you forever, and only have your best intentions at heart, and use them as an advisory board when you're making big decisions like changing jobs or something along those lines, because they're going to call you on your BS.
Randy just gave you the structure, but how do you actually go about finding these people? That's what John Jurgensen, CEO of the Axis Group, a business valued at $9 billion, shared from his own experience.
I've hunted out people that have walked in the shoes I want to walk in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've spent my life doing that. And I love learning that way. And I have a humility that is, please tell me anything. And I'm more than happy. And I listen. And there's been a few people. There's a guy, Fergus Gloucester, who helped set up Marketo back in the day. And he was one of Salesforce. There's a guy, Steve Bailey, back in the day, early on. I learned about target account selling there. Fergus was then all about pipeline and the heart of the business. And then you start to pick up people. Guy Dubois, who was our chairman, who was also ERP back in the day, helped me work with private equity and how to talk to the private equity guys, right? How to talk about my business in a different way. Please don't tell me all the things you're doing every day. Please give me insight into how the business is performing and why. So I've spent my life trying to find people, and as most people do, you've got your podcast to listen to, but I think it's that lifelong learning piece and never think you know all the answers.
Foundation, strategy, go-to-market, the machine, the people around you, 18 insights, 99 conversations. I want to close with Dinakara Nagala. He built Empower MX, software for aircraft mechanics that turned them into fanatic advocates. The company was acquired by IFS. When I asked him for his do and don't, he gave me something I haven't forgotten.
Being remarkable shouldn't just be a slogan. You should make it as a responsibility. It's what you do when no one is watching. Being responsible, being accountable. It's a system you build after the pitch is done, and that system should be built with highest amount of accountability, with the most trust you can possibly put in. The most remarkable companies, they don't scale high, they scale trust.
400 episodes in, and honestly, the most remarkable stories are still ahead. One more thing before you go. The Remarkable Effect, my book, is actually built on the stories and conversations from episodes 1 to 100. The same kind of insights you've heard today, but deeper. All these CEOs share their stories for free. My book is my way of doing the same. Just visit theremarkableeffect.com. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you got value from this episode, please share it with other SaaS founders who need to hear this as well. And if you got 10 seconds, a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts will help more people to find these conversations. Thank you for listening to the Remarkable SaaS podcast. If you want more insights like this, subscribe to my daily email, Espresso with Ton. It's a 2-minute shot of clarity for SaaS founders who want to create pull, not push. You can sign up, along with getting my book, at valueinspiration.com. See you in the next episode.